The tranquil atmosphere in the Northwest Province was transformed as the best South African racing crews made their way to the Baberspan 500 off-road race on March 19th. As it was only the second event of this year's off-road racing calendar, teams still had teething problems with new vehicles and crews. The large field of entries confirmed the importance of this race. It's been around for 21 years and is known to be grueling and very, very tough. Amongst the other top contenders were the Toyota dealer teams with brand new vehicles and plenty of confidence.
I'm looking very forward to this race because this is my special one. It suits our vehicle very nice, and we've won it three years in a row, except for last year. We ended second overall year.
Well, we got a new van, a new double cab, and we tried it before, and we're still in a growing process, and we plan to finish the event.
But we aim just to finish, you know. It's a new sponsor, and if we can get a finish in the top 3 or 4, then we'll be happy.
Collin, on your side, what do you see as a challenge?
Well, that's quite a difference to change from quads to cars, but I anticipate it being a lot easier as far as breakdowns and whatever you're concerned. So we're going to go out there, we'll give it a bash. We'll take a time trial and really take it from there and see how the car's handling, and maybe we'll be there tomorrow.
You know, we in South Africa are very lucky. We can go to any part of South Africa with our South African Championship, and it'll be some part of the Paris-Dakar.
The first time the competitors could get down to serious racing was with the time trials. And joining us on this program is former South African multiple off-road champion Kenny Scholthammer.
Thanks, Glenn. The purpose of the time trial is to establish your start positions for Saturday's race and to find out what the conditions will really be like for Saturday's racing, and to establish where your competition lies. For every event is different, so it'll be nice to know where your competition is going to be after the time trial.
So most of the competitors don't just use it to get great times and say, hey, I want to be really up front of the starters. They want to have a good look around in the time trial.
Oh, most definitely. They have races within races. So, you know, every category must compete against each other, and they establish where the guys are, and Saturday's race start time comes, and the guys basically pace themselves off one another.
The time trials posed a few problems as Newton Love and Collin Potter went off the track before finding the route markers. With Paolo Piazzamuzzo and Stratford Fucht hot on their heels, other competitors also wasted valuable time on this section of the route. Johan Gerber and Kwitsia Labaskachny in their Raconic chef made no mistakes and were chasing hard after the pack ahead. In the bike section, the large field of 101 entrants prepared for the time trials. Not the toughest of terrain, Kenny, but I guess you have to keep your wits about you.
Most definitely, Glenn. You'll see these guys start much closer together than the motor vehicles, which means that they're riding in dust consistently. And there are a lot of bad rocks out there, so you have to have your wits about you.
Quentin Milton on his Kawasaki demonstrates that the bikes had no problems with the road conditions as he speeds across the millie fields. Behind him, Rian van Niekerk on his KTM had to contend with the terrible dust factor. In the quad section, Christophe van der Merwe on his Banshee was fortunate to start the time trials first, which gave him a distinct advantage against the dust.
First time Christo will be up against Vickers on the Gulwaz Yamaha this year, so it'll be very interesting to see the outcome.
In the open category, the blue Gulwaz Blonde quad driven by Vickers van Deventer is an awesome sight as it speeds through the dust, and was definitely one of the quads to look out for over the 500-kilometer stretch of the main race. The last section of the 50-kilometer time trials became a little hectic with the faster vehicles having to contend with slower traffic. Kenny, any unwritten rules there?
Glenn, this is where you just foot it. You've got to set a quick time for your start tomorrow morning, otherwise you're going to be in the dust.
Gary Heiner and his mighty mag seemed unperturbed as he approached the finish, with one wheel missing. And the Vodacom Pajero team of the internationally experienced Neil Woolrich and co-driver Paul Vermaak were pleased with their performance at the time trials. The officials clocked in the finishing times of all entrants, and this vital information would determine all the starting positions and times for the main race. Back in the pits, maintenance crews worked flat out in the limited time to ensure that vehicles were ready for the big day before being impounded for the night.
Very rough out there, and it's quite a lot of dongas, but in short wheelbase is obviously quite an airy motor car to keep on the track. But I anticipate a good day tomorrow. I don't expect any problems.
It's a very fast time trial today. The car ran like a dream. Production vehicles, as you know, it is very competitive. But we're in with a chance for tomorrow. Well, we hope so, as long as the car stays together.
There's a pace you've got to go at, and you've got to go at the pace of the car, that you don't break the car and yet you're fast enough to stay with the guys. This is a particularly old car. It's been running for 5 years in South Africa and was running a good couple of years in the States. So it's really not a high-tech car, but it's a very well-balanced car.
It really is a finishing sport. Most guys, that's the ultimate goal, is to get to the end. Yeah? It's not really where you come. That's almost luck sometimes in this game. You come across some dongas and so on, and you can just really put your foot down and go straight over them, and the suspension does all the work for you. It is about how fast you can go, because it's a race. You know, while you're going along a fence or something, that's when you really notice the speeds you're doing, because you see these fence poles flying past you. And it's also quite a strange sensation going through the millie fields for a long period of time. It almost gives you like a tunnel vision. You're continually seeing these millies, and you're trying to concentrate on the road ahead of you. And it's hell of a good fun at the end of the day.
With rain clouds looming, the biggest question of the Baberspan 500 was, what's the weather going to do?
Baberspan is known. Today is 35 degrees, and tonight the clouds open up, and tomorrow we've got a mud bath.
You know, it's something else when you're coming along and you see the fence half underwater, so you know how deep it is, and it can change, but you know, we don't know what the weather's going to do. They say no rain.
Back at the campsite, with Bryce looking very promising, various teams were debating what would happen the next day.
Well, this is the first national that I'm going to be racing, so it was a bit of a team effort between amongst us here, and we decided, well, let's go for it.
We all ride together, we all from the same company, and we meet our guys, we all, you know, the nationals, the regionals, the club events, we're always together. And we see who can beat who.
My major rival this whole season of racing, which I think I can talk for Billy as well, is Cornell. And that's our rival. We're going to beat Cornell, and that's what we want to do. We know he's the fastest, and he rides better, quite a lot better than both of us. So we'll see what happens at the end of the season.
So these the two of you maybe have a message for him.
Hopefully he gets stuck tomorrow, or
hopefully none of that bad luck that's been wished upon me will come true.
With the last rays of the sun bringing a close to a frantic day, all competitors prepared for a good meal and an early night before the big day. A.m. on race day, and the first to set off was Archie Reneker and Robin Houghton. Henry Kirsten and Renier Justus started close on their heels, followed out by the rest of the pack.
The start is 30 seconds intervals, which gives the guys a dust allowance, which the times are recalculated at the end of the race, which means that the guys first on the road are not necessarily the guys that are going to win the race. It is an advantage to start later on sometimes, as the marking isn't really up to scratch, which we found in this race.
With the early morning sun rising and making it easier to find the road, came the conflicting problem of decreased visibility from the dust.
Well, as there's no wind in the early morning and you're driving into the sun, it really does tend to be a problem.
Vickers van Deventer set the pace at the time trials, which gave him an edge in leading the quad pack on race day. Johan Lotter on his Yamaha set off second, chasing after Vickers, with Mark Breckel from the Brasco refrigeration team close behind. Victor van der Merwe from the Johannesburg Yamaha team on his Banshee got off in 4th position, having his work cut out to catch the quads ahead of him. Jacques Struwik set off in his Honda 3 minutes and 41 seconds behind the leading quad. Only a 2-second difference between Errol Dalton on his Honda and Alfie Cox and Carl LaRue on their KTMs in the bike section. 1 minute and 35 seconds after the first 3 bikes, Grant Bloomfield, Jeremy Davies and Graham McLachlan set off. The overall distance of the race is 500 k's, 2 laps of 250. The first lap started at Baberspan, went off to Vryhof and back. The second lap from Baberspan went up to Setlagole and back down to the original starting point. Within the first 70 kilometres of the first lap, the field had become dispersed. Kenny, settling in time, very important here?
Yeah, the race begins to develop and you find yourself a nice pace that you're comfortable with and you find where the opposition is. So you settle in there.
But unfortunately for Vic Varker and Dion de Kock in their VW, the race had already taken its toll.
We just got first and second at the moment.
Are you carrying on?
Well, we see if we can get a third gear, we'll carry on. But first and second is a little bit tough.
Lying behind the vehicles, the quads were making up good time on the expansive, long stretches of road. Henry Kirsten and Renier Juster in their race code kept up with the leaders, with Arpi Reinicker and Robin Houghton close behind them. Tony and Mandy Yo in their Sabat Landrover had made up excellent time after starting in the morning with a 13-minute lapse. Billy Bond and Graham Newton in their Sandmaster were going strong, even after losing their intercom with each other and having to rely on hand signals for navigation. But in the lead were Cassie Coetzee and Piet Swanepoel in their Hilux, followed by the Ford of Paolo Piazzamuzzo and Stratford Fought. Kenny, noticeable by their absence here, the father and son combination of the Chepex.
Yeah, Glenn, they were right up there. Unfortunately, they had a coming together with Henry Kirsten in the race cars due to the dust and the marking they were looking.
With the vehicles moving towards the halfway mark on lap 1, the quads started to move rapidly up the field. Race favourite Vickers van Deventer on his Gauloise Blonde Yamaha was stepping up the pace in the front, enjoying the dry, dusty conditions, which resembled some of the sections he'd encountered on the Paris-Dakar race. Behind Vickers, Johan van Lille on his Yamaha was making good time, considering his 3-minute disadvantage at the starting point. As expected, the first bike to reach the halfway mark was the KTM of Alfie Cox. But even though Alfie was setting an incredibly fast pace, Errol Dalton was determined not to let Alfie out of his sight. Kenny, Alfie Cox very much the hero now, and everybody gunning for him these days more than ever.
Yeah, he's the guys are looking to knock him off his perch, but he's so good at the moment, the guys really have to have their work cut out to try and beat him.
And the whole Paris-Dakar thing, he's like a real bigger hero than ever before now.
He's a cult figure now. Here you'll see how difficult it is for a bike to actually pass somebody on the route. This quad is sort of 50% slower than the bike, but the bike has to leave the route normally to pass, and so being with the car as well. So these guys really, if they hit something, they're going to be in trouble.
The temperature reached a high of 35 degrees as the first lap was completed back at Baberspan. The Toyota dealer team of Arpi Reinicker and Robin Houghton made it to the fuel stop first, but all was not well with their vehicle.
Not so good. Alternator lights coming off.